It's so key that we stay non-judgmental. There are ways that we can share our support with someone else. Spending time with someone is huge. Over 90% of suicides showed at least one risk factor. What if that one risk factor that you just brushed aside was the reason someone threw themselves off their shopping center? Do you genuinely care? Have the conversation. That's really all it comes down to. So let's say someone's doing it tough, and let's say they actually don't even want to tell you. Let's say that they have their walls up and whatever. Like I said earlier on, it's so key that we stay non-judgmental. So accepting that that's where they're at, maybe asking like, hey, are you sure? Like I've noticed X, Y, Z. And if they still don't want to speak, engage with them. Whether it be in a conversation about something that they love, whether it be about going in about an activity that they love, actually taking an interest in them. Spending time with someone is huge. Like love languages, right? Being able to spend time, gift giving, words of affirmation, all these different things. There are ways that we can share our support with someone else.
Okay. And what I wanted to ask around that is, if we were to flip it, if the person doesn't feel comfortable, I'm not saying the person that's struggling, but the person that's struggling goes to someone else, and that person that they go to doesn't feel comfortable in a way supporting them, how do we make that conversation more comfortable for the person that doesn't feel comfortable talking about mental health?
Unfortunately, it's a matter of a choice. At the end of the day, just to have the conversation, to want to support other people. Like the ABS suicide statistics, over 90% of suicides showed at least one risk factor. What if that one risk factor that you just brushed aside was the reason someone threw themselves off their shopping center because they felt like they had no reason to be here? They felt like they were worthless. You know, I mean, I share that because it resonates deeply with me. I was nearly one of those suicide statistics back in 2016 when I was 16 years old. Thankfully, I'm left in this wheelchair. Though, if we just have the courage, because you know what? If it's uncomfortable, it does take a little bit of courage to address an uncomfortable topic in conversation. Just to say, hey, look, I've noticed X, Y, Z. How are you really feeling? Because I want you to know deep down I care.
And it's so true. Like, for the people listening, you may feel uncomfortable talking about all this stuff, but as Matt just said, if you've just brushed that risk factor and someone's gone and thrown themselves off a building just because you felt uncomfortable speaking to someone for a couple of minutes, in a way, it's not stupid, but it's like, come on, like, if you seriously just can't have a conversation with someone and actually care about where they are at in life, what are you going to do when a family member or your own child or something comes up to you?
Absolutely.
It's a big reflection, really big reflection.
Yeah, and that pinches at a whole nother level, right? And so it's really about, well, what could you be preventing? And what could that lead to? Do you genuinely care? Have the conversation. And like I said, easier said than done.
Definitely.
It's tough. But to have that little bit of courage to say, hey, I support you. Hey, I'm here. Hey, look, I'm here to have a chat if you need. And then actually following up and being okay to listen. Mm-hmm. Not when they're talking to you, drift off, look at the clock, think about what you're going to make for dinner or what chores you got to get done or whatever. No, to genuinely be there with that person. To say, hey, I'm here for you. Give them your physical presence. If I was talking to you, Nick, and I was facing the other way, you don't feel like I'm speaking to you.
Exactly.
But if you were opening yourself up and being vulnerable, and if I wasn't listening, you're going to think that I don't care, you can't trust me, whatever it may be. And so not only physically being present, but mentally being present, listening and trying to understand the words that you're sharing, right? Which leads into being emotionally present, which is showing empathy, trying to put myself in your shoes and see the world from your eyes, because I'm not in your shoes right now. But if I do my best to hear you out, put myself in that position, hear you out and see the full picture for what it is, everything you're feeling makes sense. Because no matter what emotion comes up, it always makes sense because something's triggered it. There's no judgment. There's empathy. You're listening and you're present. They're going to feel your support. That's really all it comes down to, listening.
That's it. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
That's exactly right. And if you're like me, you got big ears. So.
But yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you've just said, because a lot of times people get caught up thinking that they have to solve people's problems. They have to have the answers. No, you don't. A lot of the times, someone just needs to vent.
And if someone's struggling, like think of it like like a can of Coke, right? That can of Coke, it's already got, what is it? What is it? It's carbonated.
Yeah, carbonated soda or something.
Yeah, whatever you call it, right? It's already got pressure in there. If that can's full and you're feeling like, your can's full, imagine putting more air pressure in there. What's going to happen to that can? It's going to explode. And it's not going to be pretty. That's called a breaking point. And we all have them. By just having the conversation, we empty that can halfway. It's half the battle to just get things off your chest. And if we did that, man, just thinking back in my experience, we touched on my story a little bit, but being 12 years old, falling into depression, and for 4 years keeping things to myself and going about vices to not only escape the pain but hide it from everyone else, and then build this physique to prove to the world that I was doing well, posting on Facebook, all the likes, comments, all that shit. It all came through, and I was a Coke can just closed, putting more and more and more air pressure that, eventually I popped, I exploded, and that was my jump, right? No one needs to hit a breaking point.